Young and the Restless predictions. Sharon targets Lucy, Connor spirals after split. Young and the Restless predictions show that Sharon Newman, played by Sharon Case, finds herself in a crisis. And it is with Nick Newman, Joshua Morrow, her former flame, appearing frequently in her storyline. Sharon's mental health struggles come to the fore. So, Nick may prove to be her savior. Other Y&R predictions indicate that Sally Spectra, Courtney Hope, discovers the truth about Adam Newman's, Mark Grossman, betrayal. And she makes a decisive exit from his life. And more Young and the Restless spoilers hint that Claire Newman, Haley Aaron, finds herself at odds with Summer Newman, Allison Lanier, after a sudden dismissal from her nanny role. Y&R spoilers also show that Sharon Newman grows increasingly concerned about Lucy Romalotti, Lily Brooks O'Brien, who turns to alcohol and winds up in a car crash. The incident brings back painful memories of Cassie's death for Sharon, leading her to blame Lucy's father, Daniel Romalotti, Michael Graziadei. In the ensuing chaos, Connor Newman, Judah Mackey, spirals as his parents' relationships crumble, hinting at potential self-harm due to his OCD. Young and the Restless predictions. Sharon targets Lucy, Connor spirals after split. The chill of an early Genoa City morning brought with it a shift in the air, a quiet promise of turmoil beneath the polished surface. At Crimson Lights, Sharon sipped her coffee slowly, the warmth doing little to thaw the cool calculations forming in her mind. Her eyes lingered too long on the table where Lucy had sat just the day before, laughing with Daniel. Sharon's smile never reached her eyes. Lucy had returned from Portugal with a lightness that unsettled Sharon more than she cared to admit. The girl's charisma had blossomed, her confidence apparent, and most unsettling of all. Nick had taken a keen interest in reconnecting with her. Not inappropriately, not obviously, but enough that Sharon felt the change. It wasn't jealousy. Sharon had long buried her romantic past with Nick. What concerned her now was control, structure, influence. Sharon had worked hard to build her role in the community and her family's fragile balance. Lucy's growing bond with Nick, and Daniel's rising prominence in the Newman Abbott sphere, threatened to undo it. Sharon had spent years mastering the art of quiet power, counseling others, guiding broken spirits. She could see the cracks in Lucy's foundation, the subtle insecurities the teenager tried to mask with bravado. It wasn't malicious, not yet. But teenagers wielded emotional chaos like wildfire, and Sharon had no intention of letting Lucy disrupt her carefully curated stability. She began with subtle nudges. Encouraging Faith to check in with her cousin more often, subtly suggesting Lucy might need grounding influences. At therapy sessions with parents, she raised hypothetical concerns about blended families and stepchildren struggling for identity. Always indirect, always plausible. Daniel noticed first. Sharon's advice about Lucy grew increasingly pointed, cloaked in concern but laced with implication. He confronted her once, gently. Sharon deflected with practiced ease, cloaking herself in professionalism. But Daniel remained wary. Meanwhile, Lucy sensed the shift. Once fond of Sharon, she now felt watched, scrutinized. In the corners of her life, she felt the presence of expectations she hadn't asked for. It began to suffocate. And when Lucy overheard a conversation between Sharon and Faith, an innocent talk twisted by paranoia, it confirmed her suspicion: Sharon didn't trust her. Lucy's rebellion wasn't loud or dramatic. She simply pulled away. From Faith, from Crimson Lights, from anything that smelled of scrutiny. She spent more time with Billy and Chelsea, found solace in art therapy, and began journaling again. In secret, she considered applying for boarding school, eager for freedom. Across town, another storm brewed. Connor Newman had returned from his treatment in Baltimore, quieter, more withdrawn. His progress had been steady, but tenuous. Adam and Chelsea had held their breath with every milestone. But it wasn't until Chelsea broke the news, gently, lovingly, that she and Billy had decided to move in together that the cracks began to spread. Connor had always viewed Billy with suspicion. His charm, his unpredictability, His place beside Chelsea, it felt like an invasion. Now, it was permanent. Or at least, that's how it felt to a young boy whose world had always dangled on the edge of collapse. At first, Connor tried to accept it. He smiled through dinners, nodded when Billy asked about school, even sat through a family game night. But his silences grew longer, his answers shorter. In his room, he began scribbling pages of angry thoughts, drawings laced with anxiety, metaphors of drowning and fire. At school, he withdrew from friends. Teachers noticed the change. His grades slipped, and when confronted, he shrugged. When Adam tried to reach him, Connor recoiled. His father had promised stability, but nothing ever stayed. First the divorce, then Sharon, then the separation. Now Billy was replacing him in his mother's life. The final trigger came during a birthday celebration. Billy surprised Chelsea with a gift, framed photo of the three of them, smiling during a picnic. Connor wasn't in it. He'd stayed home that day, claiming a headache. Chelsea hadn't noticed the omission. But Connor had. That night, he packed a small bag and snuck out. Chelsea was devastated. She accused Adam of manipulating the situation, of exploiting Connor's trauma to sever her bond with her son. Adam, in turn, accused her of choosing Billy over Connor's needs. The argument fractured what little civility remained between them. Connor, caught in the crossfire, deteriorated. His spirals became more intense, episodes of panic, bursts of rage followed by deep silence. Therapy sessions became confrontational. At one point, he lashed out at his therapist, accusing her of lying like everyone else. Alarmed, the center recommended a reassessment. Adam refused. Chelsea insisted. The court hearing loomed. Back at Crimson Lights, Sharon observed the situation unfold with growing concern. While she had kept her focus on Lucy, Connor's unraveling tugged at old wounds. She remembered Faith's struggles, Noah's silence, the long nights of wondering whether her choices had destroyed her children's sense of trust. Sharon reached out to Adam, offering to mediate. He declined. Then she tried Chelsea. The call ended abruptly. But Sharon wasn't deterred. She drafted a psychological profile on Connor's behavior, unofficial, but thorough. She presented it to the family court evaluator, unasked. Her intentions, she told herself, were noble. The fallout was swift. Chelsea accused Sharon of crossing ethical lines. Daniel, already wary from Sharon's pressure on Lucy, confronted her in public. For the first time in years, Sharon's moral high ground cracked. Nick intervened quietly, asking Sharon to step back, reminding her of boundaries. But Sharon, stung, withdrew instead, retreating into herself, questioning where her care for others ended and her need for control began. Lucy, meanwhile, found unexpected clarity. Watching Connor's struggles, she felt a painful empathy. She too had grown up in a storm of adults warring for moral superiority. She decided not to run, but to ground herself. She approached Daniel and asked to reconnect with Heather, seeking advice on how to advocate for herself. She began volunteering at the Arts Center, using her story to help others cope with familial chaos. Connor's situation reached its tipping point when he went missing again, this time for hours. Found eventually at a closed community center, curled in a ball behind the bleachers, he whispered that he didn't know where home was anymore. That night, both Adam and Chelsea sat beside him in silence. They didn't argue. They didn't explain. They simply stayed. Later, in a rare moment of unity, they agreed to place Connor in a longer-term therapeutic boarding school. The decision broke them both, but they signed the papers together. Weeks passed. Sharon focused on her clients, quieter now. She'd returned to her own therapist, finally confronting her pattern of involvement. At home, she rebuilt her relationship with Faith. No longer seeing herself as the fixer, she chose to simply listen.